There's a strange thing that happens in a war, a moment when the newness burns away and what remains is something harder, heavier, and more permanent than anyone expected. For Sam and the lads of his platoon, that moment came a few months into Tour 1. By then, the routines were second nature. Clean your weapon, hydrate when you can, check on the man beside you, and never, ever let your guard drop. At the start of the war, many soldiers thought in terms of weeks or months, but eventually that thinking drifted. Days began to stretch out, one bleeding into the next, and no one could remember what day of the week it was. You only measured time by patrols, ambush sites, and how long since you'd last written home. Historically, this phase of a soldier's tour was when the cracks began to show. Not the dramatic breaks the films like to focus on, but the quiet ones, the long stares, the jump at sudden noises, the way some lads spoke less and less with each passing week. Vietnam's terrain played its part. There were places where the mud swallowed you to the knee, and others where the ground was so dry and cracked it felt like marching across an oven door. The monsoon season brought weeks of unrelenting rain. Boots never dried, clothes clung to the skin, and trench foot, something many thought belonged to old wars, returned with a vengeance. But the hardest part wasn't the weather, it was the unpredictability. A trail quiet one day could be wired with traps the next. A patch of jungle that felt safe could turn deadly in a heartbeat. Every soldier out there learned to read the land, to trust instinct more than maps, and to listen to the silence as much as the noise. Some nights, the jungle's stillness felt so absolute that even a breath seemed too loud. In those moments, Sam found himself thinking about Jonesy's harmonica, or the songs they played under the lantern's glow. Small moments of peace in a place that offered so few. But the lad Sam was, back in Miller's Crossing, that boy was fading. Letters home grew shorter. He stopped talking about the lads by name, stopped describing the weather, the food, the routine. Instead, he wrote simple lines like, "I'm fine," or "Don't worry about me." Emily kept every one of those letters in a box under her bed. She'd hold them tight, trace the handwriting with her fingers, and wonder why the voice that once brimmed with warmth now sounded like it was carried from 1,000 miles deeper than before. This wasn't unusual. Many families described the same change. It wasn't distance alone. It was transformation. As the war settled into Sam and he settled into the war, the world he'd known back home began to feel unreal, like a dream slipping from the edges of memory. The tour was progressing, and the young man standing under the Vietnamese sky was no longer the same lad who'd stepped onto that Greyhound. Something within him was shifting, quietly, steadily, and soon the war would make that shift undeniable.